Welcome into another edition of The Q. I am Belligerent. This is episode 2. Thanks for joining me again. And in today's episode, what we're going to chat about, what I feel, what's on my mind right now, is talking about the Challenger Series that's coming up. It's coming up this weekend. By the time this episode releases or makes it onto the iTunes library, it may very well be in the middle or maybe past the Challenger Series. Not sure. Going to try and get it released probably at least in the middle of the Challenger Series because it does take a day or so for that to kick in. But we have the Challenger battles coming up now, where we have the 3 teams from the VIS taking on the Challenger teams of the VG8. And so there's a couple of things that I want to touch on here. First, so we're going to I want to touch on the format of the Challenger Series, and I want to take a look at a couple of the teams that are in the Challenger battles from the VG8 side. Focus primarily on the NA scene because that's the one that I'm more familiar with. Just give you some thoughts, some opinions, and I would love to hear from you. So hit me up on Twitter with your thoughts, your opinions of this. You can find me at belligerent_VG. That's at BLG3RNT in case you don't know how to spell it, _VG there. You can also use the hashtag, I don't know a hashtag just yet, but hit me up. Tag it, use the Q, hashtag the Q. I don't know if that hashtag exists yet, but I will be checking for it. Spell out the Q, QUEUE, just to make sure, because just THEQ is probably already taken for something. I'm sorry. Should have done some hashtag research before I put this episode out, but this is me. This is raw. So some things planned, some things not. I promise that we'll get a hashtag for the show for you to respond to me on. So the new challenge battle format. So here are some thoughts. First, I think they got some things right in this final season of the year. Okay, I think only 2 teams going to challenger battles makes more sense than 3, especially if they're going to keep with the current format of the top 6 teams going to the live championships. Now, I don't know what next year is going to hold. I don't know if 5v5 is still going to be the top 6 teams from each region going to the Unified Live Championships. Don't even know if there's going to be a Unified Live Championships for 5v5. Don't know if it's still going to be VG8. Don't know if they're going to up it to VG12 or whatever. I don't know. So there's a lot of things that we don't know yet about the 5v5 scene. But I'm going to assume for the argument of this episode, since we don't know these things yet, I'm going to assume that they're going to keep that format the same. I'm going to assume that we're going to continue to have Unified Live Championships. I've been to both of them so far. I think they have worked well for SEMC. So I think the turnout was better in LA than it was in London, but I personally thought the London event was much it was better put together than the LA event. Maybe it was just the venue itself. So I would love to see them stick with that format with the unified championships, one being over in EU, one being in NA, and I would love to see that format. So if they're going to do that, I think only 2 VG8 teams going to the challenge battles is the right way to go. Because it avoids what we saw in London, where Immortals had lost in the challenge battles, fallen down. We already knew they were going to be a challenger team. However, because there were 3 challenger teams instead of just 2, the top 6 still end up going to London for the Unified Live Championships. And so we see Immortals, a challenger team, there being involved in the live championships. It was kind of weird. It was kind of awkward. Immortals ends up getting a win. And so it just didn't play out right, having the bottom 3 teams go to challenge battles. So I do like the 2 teams the bottom two teams having to fight for challenge battles, because then you don't have to worry about whether a team is going to drop to challenge. The sixth place team is going to lose in the challenge battles, and then by the time you get to lives, they're not even really technically a VG8 team, and all that weird awkwardness that happened in London. So I think that they got it right in that scenario by switching it to only the bottom two VG8 teams going to challenge battles. That makes more sense to me. Okay. The other thing to touch on here is that I also like it being at the end of the season. They've tried a couple of different things. They tried doing it at at the split and at the end. Again, I don't like there being challenge battles at the split, because there's not really, the whole, if the challenger team replaces the VG8 team, the challenger team takes on their points. That's kind of weird, because that team didn't really earn those points. You don't know if that team could have beat the teams that the VG8 team beat. You don't know if the challenge, it was to me, it was weird. It was awkward. It was, I did like the aspect of, when the challenger teams picked who they were going to play for the right to come into the VG8. I did like the element of, okay, you have to choose, either you're going to take the easier team just so you can get into the VG8, but that team isn't going to have any points or very few points, or you can risk it. You can go for the big points, and you can go for the toughest VG8 team that is available for you to pick, but you will get, kind of the no risk it, no biscuit type scenario, right? So you can take the risk and reap the reward, or you can play it safe but get very little reward. So I like that element to it, but it was still kind of a weird situation. I wasn't a huge fan of them coming in the middle of the split. And then I really wasn't a fan of challenge battles at the split and at the end, because then you have challenger teams that make it up into the VG8. They only had 3 weeks at that point in time to earn some points to make sure they don't end up in challenge battles again. So we were seeing a lot of turnover, so to speak, where a team would come up from the challengers, not get enough points, go back down into the challenge battles. A lot of those teams just ended up going back into the challengers because of the whole point situation. Really, only Tempo Storm was the team that was able to come up from challenge battles and stay up from the challenger team. Nova also did it, but Nova came in at the end of the season, so they didn't have that scenario where they had to earn a certain amount of points to stay out of challengers. As where Tempo Storm came in the middle, they were actually able to accumulate enough points to earn 5th place, I believe. Yeah, 5th place, because that's who we faced when I was coach at Gangstars. That's who we faced first as being the 4th place team. So they actually came in the middle of the split, were able to earn enough points to get up into that 5th place spot, and they actually managed to avoid challenge battles since then until this season. Okay, so that brings us to who are we actually, who's going to be in the challenge battles this season. And from the VG8, we're looking at Tempo Storm and Gangstars. And to me, that's kind of like Tempo Storm is kind of that team that has always, I've always kind of rooted for them as the underdog, just because they were the team that was able to come from challengers and beat all those odds and avoid going back to challengers, as where with teams like Echo Fox and Energy and even Rogue and Immortals to a certain extent. We see these teams come up, they go down, they come up, they go down. Tempo Storm has been kind of steady, but now after a couple of seasons, 3 seasons, we see them finally see their downfall. So it's a little disappointing to see Tempo Storm. Now they've never really, achieved much with it. They've always stayed around, at that five, four, five, six level, somewhere around there. But they were able to avoid the challengers. On the other hand, you have Gangstars. Gangstars is this storied organization who, because of some roster decisions and just not being able to uh, make the right roster moves with the amount of time that's in between seasons and things like that, and fill some spots, or maybe they thought they had some spots that they could fill. Like they tried to fill Rex spot with Veins, and that didn't even work out because I don't know exactly what happened in that situation. It seemed like Veins got hurt and had to leave the team house and go home and maybe forfeit his spot, and that's when Mac Daddy B came in, and it's just been kind of it's just been kind of a train wreck a little bit since they let Wrecked go. It's been kind of downhill from there because his replacement Veins left the team shortly thereafter, and then Mac Daddy B comes in, and then Iraqi Zorro leaves, and then they got to bring Lulu in, and there just hasn't been, since their performance in London where we took second, there's just been so much turmoil in that roster that they just haven't been able to kind of get their feet underneath them since the second place performance in London. Now, let me drop some opinion on you here. Let me give you one of these absurd opinions that I'm going to throw out, but I think that, and I don't know how many of you that are listening to this are sports fans, but, in some sports just do better when certain teams are good in the league. Overall as a league, the league is doing better as far as like viewership and profits and things like that. Like for the NFL, whenever the Cowboys are competitive and doing well, that seems to be a team that can kind of propel the league. In basketball, it's the Lakers or the Celtics, right? When these teams are doing good, it's better for the league. When the Yankees and the Red Sox in baseball are competitive for the league overall, it's better because these are storied franchises. And I feel like Gangstars is one of these storied franchises that, it's just better for the VG8, for Vainglory, for SEMC if Gangstars is in. And so I'm a little nervous about the challenge battles that are going to happen tomorrow. Gangstars, now, we'll get into this in a minute, the format. But Gangstars' first matchup is against Vision, who I believe is they're the champions of Vis. They have a very solid team, Shaded Talent, Cause, and PvP. Shaded Talent is one of those captains that I think is just waiting to break through. That if we don't see Vision make it into the VG8, and I don't know what contract situations are or anything else like that, but I've said this on the Time for Rolling podcast that I think we're going to see Shaded Talent at the pro level at some point soon. If not with Vision Gaming, I think he'll get picked up by a pro team, especially when 5v5 hits, assuming that he has a contract that's going to expire soon, or a team is willing to buy him out, or however that contract stuff works, I don't know. But Shaded Talent, at least when I have watched him, performs very well. He's one of those captains that at least down at the Challenger League can just carry a team. We see some of these captains, Gabe Vizzle, Evol, Wrecked. Those are the guys that come to mind when I think captains that can carry their team. And we haven't seen Shaded perform at a pro level yet. At least I haven't. I don't think he's been on a roster at the pro level anytime recently. So I don't know. That's one of the things is that you see these challenger teams and everybody gets super excited about these challenger teams, but then they go into challenge battles to try to beat one of the pro teams, and we learn very quickly that there is a big difference between pro level play and challenger level play. So I'm going to be interested to see what Vision can do, but that's going to be a tough matchup for this Gangstars roster that just doesn't feel like it has any type of synergy. I hope for the org's sake that these, that Xenotech, MacDaddy B, and Lulu come to play and fight their way through this challenge battle, because in my opinion, the VG8 is better off with Gangstars doing, in it and doing well, right? They have to get back on track. They're gonna have to rework this roster or something. The roster's gonna need more time to work together, or I'm not exactly sure what the plans are. I've heard a few things. I'm not really gonna to reveal anybody's secrets on my podcast. That's not what I'm doing, because that's just not right. So I'm not exactly sure which direction the team is planning to go with the roster, or what players, I don't know what contract situations there are. I don't know what the players' intentions are as far as sticking around, trying to go to a different team or anything like that. So there's a lot of work between where Gangstars is now and getting back to one of the competitive orgs in the league. However, the first step to that is avoiding dropping to the VIS. So I think that if you don't have a dog in the fight, if you're not a Vision fan or something like that, or any of the other Challenger team fans, if you're not a fan of, if you're just a Vainglory fan, I think in a way we need to be cheering for Gangstars this upcoming weekend to survive the challenge battles. Because in my opinion, the VG8 is better off with Gangstars in it and doing well. I think Gangstars is one of those cornerstone teams. They've been in it since the beginning. They were winning championships in the beginning. One of those teams that's just always been there. And because of that, and because of them kind of carrying Vainglory with their Vainglory teams, and they're the only team, and now that teams aren't allowed to have now that orgs aren't allowed to have two different teams, they're the only team that had, I believe, two teams in the, I want to say, semifinals of Worlds, placed third and fourth, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. But in my opinion, Vainglory needs the Gangstars organization to be there and to be competitive. And the first step, like I said, to that is getting through the challenge battles. So if you don't have a dog in the fight, I think that we all need to kind of to be rooting for Gangstars, because that org being in the league is better for the league overall. Now, the last thing that I want to touch on in this podcast is this format that came out that, I saw the graphics, and the VIS did it different than the VGL as far as the graphics that they released, and they both give me kind of a coronary when I look at them. It depends on what you like. I kind of like the way Vis kind of listed it out. That made more sense to me than trying to figure out the bracket type thing that VGL did. But you almost need an engineering degree to figure out what is going on in these challenge battles. And this is nothing against the Challenger League or anything like that, but 4 days to figure out who wins the challenge battles is too much time spent on the challenger teams and the bottom teams in the league. It's like everybody got in a room and said, okay, how confusing and how complicated can we make the challenge battles? You know what I miss? I miss the days of Granted, I just kind of tore it apart as far as like the three teams, but I really miss pick the team you want to face. If you beat them head to head, you're in. That's what I miss. No, seriously, like I remember it was the challenge battle split of the spring season this year, and sitting there watching these challenge battles, just gripped, just enthralled by the Echo Fox. God, what team was it? Oh, it was. Oh God, who was that? Why can't I think of their name? Oh, Liberation X. Watching Libex versus Echo Fox, and then Fuji subbing in, and suddenly Echo Fox makes this comeback and ties it up 2-2, and it comes down to this final and fifth match. And Echo Fox ends up losing that match, but now none of that matters anymore. Like even the last challenge battles where it was like this round robin thing, and by the time you get to the end of it, right? Like I think it was Immortals that needed to win the last match against Hammers, I think, if I recall correctly. But the rest of it did, like the rest of it was decided because of the way that it played out and the wins and the points, right? It was all decided except for this one match. If Immortals can beat, or maybe it was Energy, I don't remember. Maybe it was Immortals versus Energy, but it came down to the last match there, but the rest was decided. There was no excitement in these matches because of the way it was all like points and stuff. I really just want to go back to the head to head, if you win, you're in type thing. Instead of this, I need a calculus degree to understand exactly how the bracket breaks down, and we need 4 days, 2 of them on Vis and 2 of them on Vainglory channel. And to me it's just that's not exciting. Like I want to be able to like, to me, first of all, okay, you're talking about, let's just be honest, okay? You're talking about the 2 worst VG8 teams versus the bet, and what's with this 2 VG8 teams against 3 challenger teams? That doesn't make any, what sense does that? I don't know who came up with that. I just don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Maybe some people like it. If you do, you're one of these people that disagree with my absurd opinions. Okay, my inane insights. All right, whatever. But we're talking about the 2 worst VG8 teams, and we're talking about challenger teams. And I'm sorry, I know nobody wants to say this. It feels like the society that is now giving out like participation trophies to every team in the league, in Pop Warner and all that stuff, because we as a society have decided that our children can't handle disappointment. You know what? Life is full of disappointment. Let's teach them some. And we don't need 4 days to deal with the worst teams in VG8. We don't. I'm sorry. I know that's kind of harsh, but we just don't. And we don't need fucking participation trophies. The reality is, if you're not good enough to be one of the top 2 teams in the VIS league or the VGL league, in the challenger leagues, you're probably not good enough to be in the VG8. And you know what? I'll say this, in this weekend, the third place challenger team is going to be the team that earns its way into the VG8 watch, just because I said it. But the reality is, if you're not good enough to make it to the top 2 teams in the challenger league, you're probably not good enough to be in the VG8. Go practice some more. It's okay to tell people that. It's okay to say that you're not good enough yet, but go practice some more and you'll make it. Why is that so hard? Right? Like I don't get it. And if you're good enough to be in the VGA, even though you're the third place challenger team, you'll be able to fight your way through the VIS again. And then next season, you'll be the first place team, and then you'll get another chance. Why is that too much to ask? like I just don't I don't understand. We don't need 4 days to deal with the two worst VG8 teams and the three best challenger teams. We don't need that. We need 1 day. Put it on Sunday. Let me watch it. Let me be enthralled for a day. Let me go. Let me feel the excitement of, oh my God, if this team loses this best of 5, they're out of the VG8. Like I felt with Echo Fox versus Liberation X. Let me feel that. Not this long drawn out. I've ranted enough. I've gone over my time. I'm trying to keep these podcasts to like 15 minutes. I know, and I've just ranted and ranted and ranted, and I'm sorry. But this setup for challengers is broken. Okay? I mean, just make it simple, right? Do bottom 2 VG8 versus top 2 challengers. Win and you're in, don't and you're out. Yeah, that's it. That's it for me, guys. Thanks for listening. I'm Belligerent. This is The Q, episode 2. We'll see you for the next episode coming out tomorrow. Check it out. Peace.